Book of the Dead is basically a later version of earlier books. So we have the Book of Caverns, we have the Book of Gates, we have the Book of What's in a Duat, and these books are earlier books that are much more important than what we know as the Book of the Dead, which is basically the book of turning into light. And there's a lot we got to get into and touch on these books to really get and understand what they wanted us to know about the afterlife. So this is what we're going to be getting into. It's a lot to get into, so let's begin. So now, the more you research ancient Kemet, the more you see that it was about basically two things: energy and death. Plain and simple. Energy and what they call the afterlife. I mean, everything we look at, we see in the text of the Egyptians, funerary priests, Book of the Dead. We see a whole hymn to death, songs to death. Everything was about death, dying, funerary priests, funerary texts, so on and so forth, preparing for the afterlife and everything that we must do, in that journey. So we have the energy aspect of it, and we have the application of that energy to give us the process that we must go through for the afterlife. So most of Egyptian mythology and everything that the Egyptians did was really harping on energy and death. And the more you dig into that, the more you will see that this is what it was about. So the buffer, the in-between, would be the physical world, nature, and how everything works together, and how all of that will eventually be needed and used for the afterlife. So again, it's that point, afterlife, death. And one of the things I want you to come away with at the end of this DVD is that, when you understand the afterlife is basically bullshit. I mean, when you really get it. Afterlife. I mean, what is life? And we got to go upon these definitions that man has given us about life, So life, if the energy that we are is animating matter, how is matter life and not the energy? If you understand what I'm saying. You take away the energy from the matter, there's death. So the true life would be energy itself. So this is the afterlife when you understand, because you have those who don't understand this concept and those who don't get the fact that the energy is everything. These people will be bound by the will of reincarnation, and what they will understand that there's no such thing as the afterlife. Plain and simple. This is the afterlife. When you are bound and trapped by reincarnation, death is only the beginning. It's just that simple. Death is only the beginning. So you have to really get into your mind that, the energy, the true essence of you, which is your energy, your spirit, what have you, your Ka, your Ba, it's the truth. It's the, that dual nature coming together is what you really are, that masculine and feminine energy, one, the true essence of you will be life, will be true life as they understood it. Everything else, it's a conundrum right now. It's a war, it's a trap, it's a puzzle that we have to solve and decipher in order to get back to our rightful place of living. Now, when you go back to part one, or the Ani's Book of the Dead, you see when Ani was in the afterlife, even after, the so-called afterlife of death or what have you, he was living, He saw himself playing his games and, still tilling the ground, and that was still life. He was still able in a spiritual form to do anything he wanted to do. And when you understand the essence of how energy creates everything, as I talk about, then you can understand how this is possible. But this is important in really understanding the concept that they spoke about with energy and death and how it all comes together. So now, before the Book of the Dead, and another thing that adds on to the fact that the Egyptians was, obsessed with death and the afterlife, and this was everything to them because that was true life. Before the Book of the Dead, you had many other books basically giving you instructions on, the afterlife. So we had the Book of Caverns, the Book of Gates. You had, also the Book of Day and Night. You had the book of What's in the Duat, and many other books. So what these books are And what you got to understand is when you start to research and look up these books, you have to not look at them as books. First of all, one, they didn't have the name. Those names were given by Greeks. The Greeks gave them those names. None of these books had a self, a title or what have you. But it was clear what they were, plain and simple. And it's one of the things that they just don't talk about when it comes to ancient Kemet. You always hear about the Book of the Dead and everything else, but they never really get into all the books and where you can find them and what it all means. So when you go, Temple of Seti I, you have the Temple of Ramses IV, Ramses VI, where you have these reliefs, where you have all of these books. Basically, you can find them in papyrus, and you can find them on the walls in all these temples, and also in the Valley of the Kings, where all of this stuff basically comes together. And the problem is, a lot of people, when they research the book, they look at it book by book, and they'll understand that all of this is supposed to be put together as one big, understanding, and it'll make more sense in a second. But you got to be aware, and that's one of the reasons why I'm doing this video. It's because there has been, so many questions. People who are getting more advanced in information are starting to come across this knowledge, and they're getting confused and lost by what they put out there to deceive you. So a lot of this stuff is going to fall in line with the Bible, and that's the way they wanted to do, just to kind of confuse you. So a lot of people, when they see the Book of Caverns, they always relate the Book of Caverns to hell, and you'll see that a lot. We'll get into it. But, these books existed before the Book of the Dead, and we will later get the Book of the Dead, which will basically be sort of the combination of all these books, or a new explanation of the afterlife, according to that dynasty. So it's a lot to look into. So now getting into these books, first, of course, they had these books, and this is where we get a lot of the Bible stories from, as you can look and see, by getting into the Adam and Eve story in Genesis. So you have, as I talked about before, he being gender neutral. When it's talking about male and female created he, them, and he blessed them. Notice how they're wording it, giving you that dual nature. As I talked about before in Saturn and Satan, he, gender neutral, and he is basically talking about the masculine and feminine energy being created in Genesis. This is why you have a creation of male and female before Adam and Eve. Yet we are told that Adam and Eve was the first, man and woman. So again, you go to Genesis 1, who was male and female being created if Adam and Eve is the first people. That is really important that people grasp that, because that's what they're trying to give you. They're trying to give you the dual creation of our masculine and feminine energy in the beginning. That's why Genesis is the beginning of it all. This is what it's trying to say. Your original nature, before flesh, masculine and feminine, plain and simple. So that's what Genesis is giving us. And of course, the ancient Egyptians believed in the dual energies, represented by the eye. Another thing they don't tell people, represented by the eye, plain and simple. So you had the right eye being masculine energy, representing the sun. You had the left eye being female, feminine energy, represented by the moon. And the culmination of the two would be the third eye, the eye of Ra, the eye of providence, or whatever you want to call it. The one eye, the unity of the masculine and feminine energy. And you have to understand it. So I talked about this in many videos. And every bit of information that I talked about, I got from these concepts from ancient Kemet, because this is what they harped on, and they understood the energies. Now, it's hard for people to accept and understand that we're talking about a world that is basically being ruled by masculine and feminine energy. Plain and simple. Not united. Two separate energies that are being forced to be separate and not unite, which is the cause of the chaos on the planet. Plain and simple. Now, when you look in ancient Kemet at all the deities, as I talked about before, you have the dual nature of all these gods. Masculine and feminine natures. That's for a reason that they do this, to try to give you that understanding. Masculine and feminine, all of these energies without union. So you always see that there's a consort that's a male or female. Same thing when you go into the Vedics, or you go into a lot of the other ancient civilizations, mythologies, you see this dual nature, like with Shiva, half man, half woman, Brahma, what have you, Vishnu. A lot of these gods you'll pick up on. Even when you go into the Nagas, the dual nature of the half serpent, half man, there's meaning to that, as we'll get into. But it's giving you that dualistic nature of male and female energies. Now, even in ancient Greece, in Greek mythology, you had Hermes, who basically was the god of everything masculine. He was the god of athletes, the god of sports, the god of trade and everything like that. Everything that was masculine, Hermes basically represented. And, just the opposite, you had Aphrodite, who was the goddess of love and everything that was feminine. And together they had the baby, Hermaphroditus. And then basically, remember, Hermaphroditus basically had the water nymph Salmacis basically fall in love with them, and the god basically fused them together to give us the androgynous Hermaphrodite, and that's where that whole thing comes from. But it's a dualistic nature it's trying to give you of the masculine and feminine, the male and female energies, even in Greek mythology. So we see it everywhere in the ancient world, as I said again, in India, in Asia, you have all these dualistic male and female energies that we see that's important to understand. The same thing again with Baphomet, the half male, half female. Baphomet, when you understand what it's getting into, the masculine and feminine energies. And again, you have Greek mythology that gives Saturn. Same thing you have with Baphomet, representing Saturn, representing this energy. So it's just something that you have to understand exists, that was talked about, that is everything, and it's hard for people to get it and grasp that it's wrapped up with us, everything that we do. You have this dualistic nature that's important to the afterlife when you understand, because this is what's going to determine whether you escape reincarnation or not. It's understanding that concept of a male and female energy, and understanding that anybody that's trying to deceive you wants to deceive you of this choice, of this understanding, I should say. So we are in a male-dominated world where you understand the ancient world was female, feminine. Even in time, you have a dualistic ruling of a feminine world that was ancient. Now we have this masculine world, and there's no unity. Now it's all men, driven by men, when before it was female. And we got to understand this concept, understand where we see this comes up a lot in nature, in reality, in history, and so many different things. And it's in us. And it's deep when you really grasp what they're trying to convey to us. It's going to make a lot of sense. So we understand the concept. We could talk about yin and yang, masculine and feminine energy. We see this stuff everywhere. It's important, as I said, and it's the key to understanding what the Egyptians wanted to convey to us regarding the afterlife. So, as I said, you have these books, the Book of Caverns, you have the Book of Gates, the Book of what's in the Duat, the Book of Day, the Book of Night. It's so many different things that they talk about, and you'll hear a lot about mummies and pyramids and everything like that, but they are not talking about the temples and what's on the wall and what this stuff is saying, and the fact that there are books. I mean, we're talking about 80 something feet long of papyrus, of writings that the Egyptians spoke about in regards to the afterlife. And you get many different breakdowns of these books. And as I said, a lot of them are there to deceive you. And when you begin to understand about energy and about how that could be understood to try to convey it to you in regards to the dream world, it's going to make a lot more sense, or, the afterlife. So, we have this information out there. And it's really compelling, to say the least, because it's basically everything. And I can't stress that enough. It's everything. Like if you understood what this is, I mean, we're talking about forget everything you know. This is it. This is what you want. This is what they left us, and what they were trying to get into to get us to understand that this is everything. It means more to us than anything. And, if you're not able to conquer, yourself, then everything that is talking about that I'm going to show you is basically what will befall you, and basically has already, taken over. So, let's get into this. Now, as I said, the Greeks couldn't really grasp this spiritually. So, it's tough to really decipher whether, it's tough to really tell whether they wanted to deceive us or they got it wrong. And, we'll just say they was trying to deceive us, basically, because I believe they're smart enough to understand what this stuff was. But, a lot of people who follow the work, that put out books, really just took, piggyback on what the Greeks left, back in the ancient world, what they said this stuff was. And they couldn't grasp it, spiritually, and really understand what is being said here. So, you have, when you go into the Temple of Ramses IV, you have on the left wall, you have the sun symbol, the ram's head, and the ram-headed god with the sun symbol on the left wall. And on the right wall, you have Isis, Nephis, giving you the masculine and feminine energy. So you will have, as I said, left being female, but on the wall, it's male. And then right being male, but on the wall, it's female, telling you exactly what I talked about before in meditation, about how, as a male, you need to unlock the feminine energy within you, and as a female, you need to unlock the masculine energy that is within you. We are basically dual-natured beings that are split by flesh. Plain and simple. That's what separates us. If you can grasp that. So, the real you, the energy that's controlling everything, your consciousness, all of it, dual, split by the flesh, when you get the concept. And now the reason why you as a male seeks a female is because you need that feminine energy, vice versa. It's really important, deep stuff. That's just everything. And yeah, it's deep. We're going to get into it. But this is what they talked about. This is not concepts that people just made up on their own. This all comes from ancient Kemet. Plain and simple. That's where everybody got it from. So when you see the reliefs and you understand what they're talking about and how everything is pictorial, because they couldn't just write this stuff out. One, we wouldn't never be able to understand the language. But when you look at it pictorially, when you understand what it's showing you, it's easy for you to break down when you get that concept of energy, death, the dream world, masculine and feminine, issues that you're going to face, that you're still facing right now, which we'll talk about. So they put this out here, as I said, for us to really understand. It's as if they knew something would happen, but they took the most important. I mean, you got to think about it. They put it in stone for a reason, because it was serious. It's not just in one temple. It's in many temples. These writings, a lot of different writings, because they wanted to convey this information, because it's everything. So the way they wrote these reliefs, the way they put them up on a wall, so that when you come in, you have one wall masculine, one wall feminine. So you have the book of caverns, you have the book of what's in the Duat, and you have the book of gates. So you have masculine and feminine energy, and the book of gate would be basically, might as well say, the book of the Jed, book of the spawn, the gates of the spawn. So you have basically given you Kundalini energy right there in the reliefs. So again, the people, they broke it down in books, but it really should all be put together as one and studied as one, because you have, when you look at these reliefs, a whole lot of information that is basically giving you Kundalini energy in the spine, giving you the concept of joining masculine and feminine energy and Kundalini rising. And you would never really understood that looking at all of this information that's up there, all these pictures, these depictions, and what's repeat throughout all of it. You see serpents. You will see the serpents, and they represent many different things. So you got to understand again, just going back to the garden, understanding, as I said, the lower brain, the reptilian brain. And then look at, you have Apophis, which would basically be the enemy of Ra. Remember, you have the masculine energy, which would be the male, the brain, the sun, Ra the sun. And you have Apophis, which is this serpent, who was his enemy. Same thing in the garden. You had same thing with God. You have the serpent that is the enemy. So when you understand Satan is you, God is you. So the enemy is you. So Apophis is a part of you. So this whole thing, I'm telling you, you're going to get lost in this stuff. And this is why I'm doing this, because people are being lost and they're not going to figure this stuff out. It's a lot. You can go through it all and try to break all this stuff down. But it's giving you male and female energy and telling you it must be one in order for you to go through the difficult, complex cycle of escaping the will of reincarnation. Plain and simple. So it's a journey, and you're going to have to fight yourself. It's going to make a lot more sense later. We're going to talk about this. I know I said it a lot, but it will. It's deep. It's crazy when you really grasp it, what they're trying to give us, and it's amazing. We are so lucky that this exists, and they can't destroy it. One of the things, again, they talked about in ancient Kemet that you got to understand is about, mastering the flesh and understanding that, basically what goes around comes around, and that we are all one, that all the universe, everything is in us, plain and simple. So if you hurt someone else, you're only hurting yourself. Karma, that all of that. This is where it all comes from. They talked about everything. So again, I talked about before how in voodoo they don't cast bad voodoo on people. It's just not done, because they know it's going to come back unless they did something. It's part of universal law. So it's like, when somebody does something, you can go in and step in and fulfill universal law by punishing them for what they did. Plain and simple. So think of that concept when it comes to contracts. Plain and simple. So it's like, if a contract is put out there, it has to be fulfilled. This is why they get us to enter in all these contracts and everything that we're going through, with the birth certificate, social security number, and everything like that. There is a universal truth, a universal good, a balance to everything. Contracts must be, they must be basically honored. A bad deed must be met with a good deed, so on and so forth. It's a balance. So when we say what goes around comes around, it's not just the same. It's fact. It's truth. It's going to happen. The more good you put out, the more good you receive. Plain and simple. It's not where, you put out good and you have to get bad because you put out good. It don't work that way. You simply get back what you put out. Plain and simple. So if you put out good energy, you get back good energy. You put out bad energy, you get back bad energy. You get back what you put out. Plain and simple. So getting into it, back into it again, just understanding, these reliefs and writings are giving you the body. Just like I explained with the Great Pyramid, just like we explained with the temple in Man, that we talked about with R.A. Swallow the Lubics. Big giant temple dedicated to the body, big pyramids dedicated to the brain. Is giving you all of this stuff, dealing with the body, dealing with energy, right there in front of you. They built it. So right there you have it on the walls and the reliefs. So the Book of Gates would be dealing with opening the energy gates of the spine. Stuff that they talk about in Taoism. It's stuff that we see all the time with yoga, with the chakras. In order for you to have control over your ascension into the next stage of existence, you must first master the physical, yourself, plain and simple. And that's basically what it all comes down to. You. If the universe and everything is in you, and everything is in you, you are creating and controlling, and are going to be controlling yourself, your energy, your everything going forward. There's nothing outside of you. Plain and simple. And this is what they're trying to tell us. It's all you. And when you really understand that, it's going to make a lot of sense. It's all you. You are where you are because of you. Plain and simple. It's rare when somebody has made a choice for you that puts you where you are. But I guarantee you, if you go back and look, it's a choice that you made or something that you done that aided, in that whole thing. So it's still you, no matter how you want to slice it. It's what we do, how we live the life, and how we move forward with the decisions that we make. Big deal, plays a big part in everything. So basically, when you look at these books, they basically show you trials, tribulations, beasts and monsters and all kinds of torturous things that could possibly happen. And it's giving you the understanding that it's, no matter what it is, it's still you. It's still coming from you. The universe is in you. You are the cosmos. Everything is in you. It's all you. So you have to grasp the understanding that, again, choices that we make put you where you are. And that we are all basically experiencing and suffering from the same problems, except for those who are in power. Plain and simple. Everybody else, all the citizens around the world, we have the same problems. It's either you poor or you sick. It's just that simple. And in everybody's case, the government can fix our problems. So why isn't it being done? Because we choose to let them rule us. It's just that simple. We choose not to do anything. We are all dealing with the same problems under different circumstances. And the only way out of it is a collective choice. But we are separated. Male and female, men and women, color, everything is separation. It's no unity. So the fixing of the global pain will be uniting into one, which would solve the world's problems, plain and simple, and defeating the adversary. It's the same concept within ourselves, defeating the adversary, which is within us. But if you look at it as we are all one on this planet, it's the same thing. We understand what I'm trying to say, the concept here. So the very concept or conflict that's in us is inward as well as outward. Plain and simple. But in each case, we have a choice to walk a path, whether it be a lonely one or with whoever. No matter what, in the end, before we can do anything, we got to change ourselves first. So to even grasp the concept of what I'm saying, you have to change yourself first in order to be a part of a global unity. You got to be on board. But we are all suffering from the same problem, plain and simple. And we just have not made the choice to say, fuck it, I'm tired of this shit. Let's do something about it collectively. That's basically what it is. So the same kind of conflict happens within us, plain and simple. And it's deeper than what most people imagine. And it goes into that whole, Satan thing, of the devil controlling you. So again, the devil would be what? Material, plain and simple. And then you begin to understand that everybody is basically suffering from lack of material, plain and simple. You're wishing for materialistic stuff. Everybody is living their life for material. Everything we do is for material, nothing spiritual. All of our fears, everything we worry about, is fears of the flesh. Plain and simple. Fears of the flesh. So either, you're worried about physical pain or physical pleasure. Just that simple. That is us in a nutshell as human beings. Physical pain, physical pleasure. These are our worries. This is what we worry about. Plain and simple. All physical, nothing spiritual. So, the Buddhists talk about that whole concept. Why worry about something that you can't, take with you? We always say you can't take the money with you. It's the same thing with the flesh. So if you understood that you are infinite everything, or would you be focused on something that is of no consequence to you? That something you can't even take with you. It's physical. It's not going to last forever. It's going to be gone. The main thing, the main focus, and it's one of the things that the Christians try to harp on and get you to really think, and that concept is in there, that this is temporary. And you're going to be dead soon. So why would you risk everything and focus on this physical flesh that's going to be gone, that is going to be of no consequence anyway, when the bigger picture is your soul and, eternity, when you think about it. So that whole concept is in there in Christianity to get you to really understand that. And even, Christians just, they don't care. But even as conscious people, we got to understand that same type of concept when you really grasp reincarnation, coming back. Because it's like, okay, so if your goal is to escape, you need to be focused more on the spiritual and not, worried about the physical at all, and understanding, the in-between, how to fix that problem. So again, we look at the reliefs. We see the serpent symbology everywhere. Talked about, we have Apophis, the serpent, basically, whenever you see Ra on his solar boat trying to ascend and rise, you have Apophis try to bring him down, giving you the reference to the lower brain and your higher self, your sun, trying to rise and be enlightened. You have Apophis, your lower brain, your conscious, bringing you down. And that's what Apophis is representing, is your consciousness bringing you down, plain and simple. Your consciousness is going to be the problem because your consciousness is being attacked. It's controlling you. So they understood this concept. It's like they could see the future and know that there would be a time or something would happen to where the consciousness of men will be controlled or hindered in some sort of way. And that, us being, where we were at mentally, we fell in consciousness, that we will be susceptible to this. And it's so serious that if we don't gain control of it, that it would destroy us. It would basically keep us in the wheel of reincarnation. So, you're going to see a lot of stuff. You're going to see a lot of reliefs. You're going to see a whole bunch of hieroglyphs. And all of it, and I promise you this, all of it is summed up. I mean, they were so smart when they did this. All of it was summed up into one phrase: man, know thyself. Plain and simple. There it is. It's like an equation. You can take everything they ever wrote, write it down, put it all together. It's going to equal man, know thyself. So you had Thales, Pythagoras, Aristotle, you had Plato, you had all of them go into Kemet, and they came out saying what? Man, know thyself. Know thyself. Important. Super important. So you look at everybody in the mystery schools and everything they're talking about, the culmination of it is know thyself. Plain and simple. So, to put it together, a lot of you are walking around believing you are you. Who else could you be? That's the spooky part. You think you're you, but you're not. And you give yourself hints to that in a lot of cases. And it's beginning to make sense when you really understand, everything this is going to entail. You'll really know thyself. So a lot of us have had instances where, we did something, we didn't know why we did it. We got upset at ourselves, we talked to ourselves and said, why the hell I do that? We made mistakes. And this is one of the things I stressed before. Do not confuse emotions and feelings. It's all energy, plain and simple.